And so today we wanted to share with you some concepts of how we conceptualize mental health in the Native American community. And the first thing I want to share with everybody is we conceptualize mental health differently from mainstream mental health. We think of health as the balance between 4 different quadrants. And if I can refer to our medicine wheel here, we think of health as a balance between spirit, emotions, except we have feelings here, mind, which is thought on this graph, and body. And it's different from the mainstream way of thinking about mental health, because mainstream sometimes think of health as mind and body. But for us, we also think of it as being spiritual and emotional. So we think of health as having balance between those 4 quadrants. Also, when we say health, we also include mental health. We don't distinguish mental health and health. Like if we were, if a Native person was greeting another Native person, thousands of years ago before our culture became outlawed, a person wouldn't say, hey, how's your health? How's your mental health? They would just say, how are you? And you would incorporate those four quadrants that I spoke of: the spirit, the emotions, the mind, and the body. So the medicine wheel, is ancient, traditional, native. It's an ancient Native tradition. It's not owned by Native American Health Center or any other entity. It belongs to all of us. It's rooted in culture, and it still serves us as a way to direct our services. So we have the medicine wheel incorporated into our model. And so this is our whole model that we use at the Native American Health Center. And it's the holistic system of care for Native Americans in an urban environment. And what I like about this model is, first of all, it's circular. It's not linear. And this is a traditional Native belief that things happen in cycles. They're not linear. And also, what I like about this model is it was drafted by our community and by our traditional advisors. So it wasn't just something that was thought of by providers or thought of by scientists in a laboratory. It was actually drafted by our community by having many meetings. And so the other thing I like about this model, again, it's not an individual profile of one person going through life. It's a collective profile of our whole Native American community. And it also takes into consideration our collective experience of responding to the genocide policies. So probably the most common denominator as a diagnosis for Native people is historical trauma. And historical trauma is, when we think of historical trauma, we think of all the responses that we're having to that history. And the responses, we call it historical trauma response. We have those listed in this outer circle here. So the responses to historical trauma is symptoms like, alcoholism, homelessness, poverty. So these are the symptoms of historical trauma. They're not actually the diagnosis of what's happening to us. And so also what I like about the model is that it doesn't stigmatize. All of us, providers, consumers, and family members, are all suffering from some form of historical trauma. Some have more severe symptoms than others. So it helps, deal with the stigma problem. At Native